What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, you guys remember out there when this Ukraine war first kicked off, we had the Biden administration come out and announce they're putting the greatest ever sanctions they can on Russia. Y'all remember that, right? They're going to put the most amount of sanctions they can put on Russia, because they're illegal invasion, right? Y'all remember that. And then I don't know if you guys remember, 6-8 months later, when everybody forgot about those sanctions, they come out again when, Russia done something, and, the Biden administration comes out and they're announcing more sanctions on Russia. And, over here, legitimate response or whatever, I'm thinking, like, hang on, didn't y'all already issue the most amount of sanctions you could put on Russia? And now you're issuing more sanctions? Hang on. So then, lo and behold, 6, 8, 9 months later after that, Biden announces more sanctions on Russia. And I'm like, okay, this is starting to get ridiculous at this point. 6, 8 months later, more sanctions. It's just been repeat. Wait 6, 8 months, let everybody forget, then we issue more sanctions. Well, guess what, folks? I guess you could probably see where this is going. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do you guys a favor, right, and ask you to smash that like button for me. How's that going to help you out? How's that doing you a favor? I don't know. I honestly don't know how that does you a favor, but it would greatly do me a favor. I mean, I would really appreciate it if you could smash that like button on, and hopefully that shock to the system right quick of just shifting to that made you want to smash that like button. I appreciate it, y'all. Let's get into the story right quick, because guess what, y'all? Biden levies new sanctions against Russian energy sector, but it's up to Trump whether to keep them. You love how the AP comes in. This is the Associated Press. They are very ideologically driven, if you haven't noticed. And the thing that I always rail about the Associated Press is because this is the Associated Press, right? They put out ethics guidelines for all other press corps members, if you will, right? All your other journalists out there, they put out ethics guidelines. And these people are hyper partisan. What does that tell you about our journalism these days? It's hyper partisan, if you will. So keep that in mind. But, the longtime viewers of this channel always know I pretty much only read left-wing news. I only cover right-wing stories when there's no left-wing news outlets covering the story, and it's something that I just feel like it needs to get out there. It's something I want to talk about. That's the only time. It's rare. But let's get into this thing. Check it out, y'all. Because we got new sanctions against Russia. President Joe Biden's administration announced Friday that it's expanding sanctions against Russia's critically important energy sector, unveiling a new effort to inflict pain on Moscow for its grinding war in Ukraine as President-elect Donald Trump gets set to return to office, vowing to quickly end the conflict. Sorry, I got lost there for a second because I was shaking my damn head so fast. I lost my place where I was reading, so I will refrain from doing that ever again. Thank you. The outgoing Democratic administration billed the new sanctions as the most significant to date against Moscow's oil and liquefied natural gas sectors, the driver of Russia's economy. Is that so, Joe Biden? Hang on. Like, we have mental capabilities, and we have this thing called memory. Now, I understand Joe Biden's cognitive abilities have declined, but that doesn't mean that everybody else's cognitive abilities have declined as much, right? We still remember when the last time that you put out the most intensive sanctions that you could impose on Russia. We still remember that. We remember the 10 times before that. I covered most of those sanctions because every single time it was the most intensive or the mostest sanctions you could put on somebody. It's ridiculous, y'all, but here we are again. Officials said the sanctions will punish entities that do business with the Russians, have the potential to cost the Russian economy upwards of billions of dollars per month. Is that so? More than 180 oil-carrying vessels that are suspected to be part of a shadow fleet utilized by the Kremlin to evade oil sanctions, as well as traders, oil field service firms, and Russian energy officials are also targeted by the new sanctions. Several of the vessels targeted are also suspected of shipping sanctioned Iranian oil, according to the Treasury Department. Do you think that these people care about your sanctions? This is something I don't really understand about sanctions. Like, we can impose the most sanctions on Iran that we want to, or Russia, it don't matter who, right? But if there's other countries that are allied with that country, they can just still deal with them. Sure, they may be kicked out of the SWIFT payment system or whatever, the international payment system, but that doesn't stop them from directly trading with other countries. So it's like, what are the actual effects of these sanctions? Right? These sanctions would hurt a country like the UK. Right? If we kick them out of the SWIFT, they're totally reliant on that. But countries like Iran, Russia, China, they're not affected nearly as much. It doesn't really do much. Now, I understand the reason for putting these sanctions, because sure, it does something, and you don't want these sanctions, but at the same time, you keep coming out and telling us you're imposing these sanctions as some sort of virtue signal, I guess. It's like to signify that you're doing something. I mean, how about stop sending these people weapons and put an end to the war? How about that? Then you would be put in a position to where you can stop lying to everybody. The United States is taking sweeping action against Russia's key source of revenue for funding its brutal and illegal war against Ukraine, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in a statement. With today's actions, we are ratcheting up the sanctions risk associated with Russia's oil trade, including shipping and financial facilitation in support of Russia's oil exports. In a move coordinated with Washington, the UK also slapped sanctions on Russian energy firms. The US and Britain are both targeting two of Russia's major producers, Gazprom Neft and Surgutneft, I hope that's how that's pronounced, and dozens of the company's subsidiaries. The Foreign Office said that between them, the two companies produce more than 1 million barrels of oil a day, worth $23 billion a year. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said oil revenues are the lifeblood of Putin's war economy. Yeah, taking on Russian oil companies will drain Russia's war chest, and every ruble we take from Putin's hands helps save Ukrainian lives, he said. You know what? I've heard this over and over and over again. This is going to put so much economic pressure on Russia, they'll be forced to end this war. Well, you know what? That war's been raging for like 3 years now. I do believe. Yeah, coming up on 3 years. And I don't think they're very effective. I really don't think they're very effective because he's still waging war. He hasn't pulled out yet. But, what do I know? I'm just an idiot from deep South Louisiana. That's all I know, I guess. The UK has already sanctioned almost 100 vessels in Russia's oil-transporting shadow fleet as Ukraine's Western allies seeking to increase economic pressure on Moscow ahead of any negotiations on ending the war. White House National Secretary spokesman John Kirby said the Biden administration chose this moment just 10 days before Biden leaves office for tougher oil measures because worries about world oil markets have subsided. Okay. This was really based on market conditions, Kirby said, and so the time was propitious for this decision, and that's why the president made it. Are you sure about that? The State Department also announced it was hitting 14 senior Rosatom officials, whatever that is, and executives with travel bans that also affect their immediate family members. I guess that's a company? Rosatom officials? Whatever. The Biden administration officials said that it will ultimately be up to Trump's administration whether to keep or scrap the new sanctions. Trump's transition team didn't respond to comments. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you know what? I don't think he's going to need to. Why would you remove sanctions, right? You come in, you negotiate. That's a negotiating tactic. Maybe that's why Biden's doing this. I have no idea. But you know what? I'm getting sick and tired of hearing these stories. Oh, we're issuing the most intensive sanctions we can issue here. Right? Just end the war. Like, right, the United States has the ability to end this war. They could have done it a long time ago. But you know what? These establishment swamp monsters up in Washington, D.C., they don't want to end the war. Right? I've got a viewer out there. Goes by the name of John. You know who you are if you're still watching. I ain't heard from you in a while, but regardless of this, he always advocates for the military-industrial complex. Well, you know what? I really don't think that's that important to spend money in a deficit, to print money that we don't have on the military-industrial complex. Oh, we're just giving them all the old bullets. Like, who cares about that? For real. We have much bigger issues than, replenishing our stocks with new bullets, for crying out loud. Right? All we're doing is making these military-industrial complex executives more rich by doing this. But you know why I say that is because people are over in Ukraine fighting this war. These people are dying, and it's causing chaos. And it's causing prices to go up just a little bit, right? The gas price has raised up, and it's not going to come down until this war ends. I can almost guarantee that. It's not going to come down to where it was when Trump was in office until this war ends. We have a spending problem in this country, and I'm tired of a significant portion of that spending going to the military-industrial complex. I'm just sick and tired of spending money we don't have. I just can't stand it no more. But let's keep going. There's a little bit more to this. Asked if the Biden administration consulted with the incoming Trump team, Kirby responded, "We have at every step and on every major issue been keeping the transition team informed of our decisions, what we're doing, and why we're doing it." Trump's incoming National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, wrote in an opinion piece for The Economist published shortly before Election Day that the U.S. should use economic leverage for cracking down on Russia's illicit oil sales to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Well, hang on there, buddy. They were already supposed to be doing this, if you remember. Meanwhile, Trump told reporters on Thursday that Putin wants to meet, and we are setting it up. This is good. He can put an end to this war. Trump's warm relationship with Putin over the years has come under heavy scrutiny. From who and since when? Right? Does it come under scrutiny from the corporate press? Because nobody cares about that anymore. We don't care about the corporate press's opinion of Donald Trump because we know what your opinion of Donald Trump is. And we know your opinion is very, very biased and it's not based in reality. So we pretty much, that gives us the right and, all the reasoning that we would ever need to just outright ignore your opinion. So when you say, oh, well, Trump loves Putin, we don't care. We know what Trump likes. We don't care what you have to say about that. Corporate press. Wow. The Republican president-elect has also balked at the cost of aid to Kyiv, pledging to move quickly to end the conflict upon his return to office January 20th. Trump added a new layer of doubt about future American support earlier this week when he appeared to sympathize with Putin's position that Ukraine should not be part of NATO. The president-elect has criticized the Biden administration for expressing support for Kyiv's eventual membership in the transatlantic military alliance. See, that's how they frame this. And they're supposed to be the bastion of information over here, the truth bringers, the truth tellers, y'all. That's not true. That's just not true. It's not Putin's position. It's a lot of people's position, right? And it's NATO's position, as a matter of fact. In case you guys forgot about that over there in the corporate press. That's the one that really matters, right? Because didn't we promise the Soviet Union, which is Russia, that we would not expand NATO? At least we wouldn't expand eastward toward Russia. And that's all we've done since then. Who cares? Who cares anymore about Ukraine joining? If Russia doesn't want it, if that's a red line for Russia, hey, that's fine with us over here in the United States. I don't know why we need more NATO expansion. Unless we're going to bring Russia into NATO, then it doesn't matter. If Ukraine, right? We don't want Ukraine. We don't need NATO anymore either. We can do all these defense treaties without an entire organization. Now, I know that might be not the greatest of opinions over here, but, you know, we spend a lot of money on NATO. A couple of $1 billion, I think, is the budget that we put in. We put in the vast majority of the budget into NATO. And I think we can do that without having an entire organization devoted to a defense treaty, for crying out loud. We can still keep that treaty without the organization attached to it, if you know what I mean. I think there's plenty of room to do this, and I think it would make logical sense. Right? We can have a standard for all these countries without having to have an entire organization to do this, without having to pay so much money into NATO itself. I just think it's ridiculous that NATO still exists. NATO was invented to counter the Soviet Union. When it fell, NATO's existence essentially was pointless. That's what I believe. Because I understand we need these treaties. We like having partners and allies all over the world. Once again, like I said, we could keep all these allies and keep all these defense treaties without having to have the organization, without having to have the funding going over here to this, specifically for this defense treaty. We can have these standards for the military. And these people, if they don't want to keep these standards, then they don't get to issue Article 5 if they get invaded. We can keep the articles, for crying out loud. Just get rid of NATO. Keep the charter. Get rid of the organization, in other words. That's what I say. What say you? That's what I want to know. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. I've rambled on for too long on this one, y'all. This one gets me riled up because I'm just sick and tired of funding another war, in case you haven't noticed. Yeah, I sympathize with Ukraine. Of course, I'm tired of seeing Ukrainians die on a daily basis because of some ridiculous territory dispute, right? It's ridiculous. Why can't Ukraine and Russia collaborate and let Russia have access to the Black Sea? That's all they want. He doesn't want conquest. Obviously, if he wanted conquest, then that's what he would do. He wouldn't put himself in the far east, southeast of Ukraine and stay there. That's all he's done, is stayed in his little corner of Ukraine. That's it. That is it. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.